Board of Adjustment here. Call of order. We're all here. Let's have a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I guess what? First item on the agenda is approval of the July 10th, 2023 Board of Adjustment regular meeting notes. Questions? Nothing? Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Negative? Okay. Approved. Okay, Stacy, it's up to you.
Okay, all right, well, I can announce our projects this evening. As you know, we have 3 Board of Adjustment cases, which are our variance cases. So the first case is number 2223V. It's for a variance located at 40,026 North Cibola Drive, a lot that's located in our Ranchitos Del Rey subdivision. Both the applicant and owner, Mr. and Mrs. Bill and Lisa Stein, are here. Mr. Stein is here, and we'll talk about. You probably noticed that your reports looked a little bit different, and we'll talk about that more towards our announcements. But we've got sort of a new format, new software, and we kind of have also a new process of. I think that the applicant needs to be able to speak to the board regarding their request. I'll provide you with all of the data and answer what questions you might have from my perspective, but I think the process will be I'll do a quick presentation and then the applicants will present their case as well. So a lot of new stuff here tonight. So as you know, this request in particular is looking to, the applicant is looking to construct a new detached garage at their property. They're specifically looking for a lot coverage variance of from 6% to 7.33%. As you looked and read in your report, the site, as I mentioned, is located in Ranchitos Del Rey. And that's an interesting subdivision we have here in Carefree. It's sort of in our northern territory, so to speak. And it was subdivided for some reason. It was back in the county. It goes back to the 60s when it was subdivided. But it was, the lots were smaller. However, they had a larger zoning criteria. So typically the lots would fall under a rural 70 type of development standard. All the lots are within 70,000 square feet. However, they have the rural 190 zoning. So a lot of times when any of these homes are looking to do some improvements, build new, we usually see them for a variance because very few of them are actually over 5 acres. And so as we've discussed in the past, we talk about things in terms of hardships and things that are not self-imposed. We find this to be the case pretty often in Ranchitos Del Rey. So specifically looking at the property, they're looking to build a detached garage close to the home itself. The home is relatively new, and again, for its lot disturbance, it met its lot coverage, but it didn't meet its lot disturbance early on. So you'll see that that's a question that, again, when they did apply and build the home, it met, we went through that process. So you can see it's sort of in an area that's been disturbed prior, or to the most part has been disturbed prior. So looking a little bit more closely at the site plan, it does meet the other development standards such as setbacks. I think we can talk about disturbance limit a little bit, the cut and fill requirements, and the building height for an accessory structure. So related to the citizen participation requirements, they did comply with those. One resident did reach out to both the applicant and to myself. I think they were 2 different residents, and I had just heard that they were just curious about the application, so nothing in terms of any opposition. So with that said, I'll invite up Mr. Stein, and he can discuss his request with you directly.
Good evening. Thanks for your time tonight. So I think Stacy did a very good, accurate job of describing what our intentions are. We'd like to build a detached garage, and we're encumbered by some inconsistencies with how the lot is zoned. So I'm told it is what described as a legally non-conforming situation where the lot really should be zoned R70. It's zoned R190, and because of that, the disturbance percentage number is smaller because it's intended to allow for a smaller or a disturbance area relevant to the 5-acre standards, and we're just a 2-acre lot. So our request definitely falls within all the requirements if it were zoned accurately as a R70 parcel. So I'm not sure what else to describe to you. Any questions or concerns from any of you?
Anything at all?
You're not building a casita.
I am not building a casita.
Yeah, my apologies, board, that was my mistake. Mhm.
Yeah, detached garage.
I have nothing. I understand the situation, some of the early zoning and home building around here before incorporation was kind of wild.
Yeah.
I guess the question is if there's any comments from the public. It is a public hearing.
Public have anything they would like to say? Well, that being the case, no questions from staff? Do I have a motion?
Motion.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Passed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Stacy.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Mhm. Okay, let's get. Okay, thank you, board members. This is case number 2226V, located at 9542 East Quail Trail in our Carefree Rolling Hills subdivision. The applicant and owner, Mr. Stan Nystrom, who is also here this evening. Looking quickly at the request, also looking to build a detached garage. Must be a popular addition these days. The request is specifically asking for a 10-foot encroachment into the rear yard setback where typically structures are not permitted. As you can see, the lot itself is at the end of a cul-de-sac. It borders the city of Scottsdale. Looking at it more closely, you can see that even the house was built very close to the setbacks originally, and you can even see that the pool itself, which we don't allow in setbacks today, is a non-conforming condition. What makes this project a little bit more unique is that the home was built in the incorrect location, and so just to understand its constraints is that the home is actually on sort of the crest of the lot, and it's a steep slope down to the street itself. So looking at it a little bit more closely is that it does meet the other development standards such as lot coverage, disturbance, the cut and fill requirements, as well as its building height. And I believe in your reports, there shows a diagram where the home was proposed to be built, and then it shows where it actually was constructed. And so, in my opinion, that does constitute a hardship. Because I think it was always planned to have a detached garage, and I think normally it would have met the requirements, but unfortunately, once the survey was provided, Mr. Nystrom saw that he had an issue. The applicant did comply with the citizen participation requirements. There was some concern. There's 3 residents. There was one couple that reached out to the applicant as well as another neighbor. I spoke as well to 2 of the residents, their concerns being that they are the lots to the north. So I do believe that the applicant had some productive dialogue, which I imagine he'll describe to you in his presentation. So with that said, I'll let him come on up and make his presentation here. Let me. There you go.
To advance it.
Yep.
What do you-
I think what you, either, I think, how does it work?
Oh, I could.
Or
go
maybe you could
there,
just
right.
click
I
on them
could
like
do
that.
Yeah, I
Okay.
could not.
All right.
Right. Okay.
Oh, wait. Thank you. Mine is still up for some reason. Let's try. Yeah, I think you're right. Let's see. Just give us a moment. Oh,
Oh, okay.
there it is.
Hello, my name's Stan Nystrom. I live at 9542 East Quail Trail Road, Lot 75 in Rolling Hills. Let's see, let me advance this. This is the zoning map for Carefree. I'm sure you're familiar with. I'm right on the border of Scottsdale and Carefree. The fence goes right down the side of the property and gives you an idea. It's on the far east side of Carefree. This is an aerial view of the property. This is where the proposed detached garage, which I'd like to build. There is a lot in between here, and this is the closest property, which is the Burlicks. This is my neighbor over here to the west. In August of 2021, I purchased the property. Prior to the purchase, I had a contingency upon the sale of the feasibility of building a non-occupied detached garage, three-car garage. Not to answer my own questions, I obtained the original architectural drawings and site plan, which was done by Gerald Jones, the architect, back in 74, 75. I went to the town of Carefree where they explained Rolling Hills subdivision was grandfathered in when Carefree was incorporated. At that point, they instructed me to go to the HOA at Rolling Hills, which I did, and I submitted to the Architectural Control Committee photos of site plan, location, and elevation of the drawing, which I did receive approval from them, as long as I met the R43 and the HOA standards for Rolling Hills, which I did. To take the next step, I employed Graham Surveying of Carefree to establish the property lines and also the setback lines. After their completion, what I found was different, that the house was not built on the lot according to the site plan that was filed with Maricopa County back in the 70s, mid-70s, about 77. So that's what I went off of, and I'll go to the next slide here. This is what I went off of to determine if I wanted to buy the house, and it was, I felt, a natural site for it. But the original site plan is on the left there, and you can see the property line and see how the house runs parallel to the property line. That gave me a good 24 feet, which was adequate, and I was not even close to the 30. Back then, it was 20 feet on the side. The one on the right here, this is Graham's, the Alta survey, and it is a topo also. But you can see how the house runs at an angle compared to the property line. And with that being said, that's what made the garage go into the setback. Basically, it's 10 feet on the northeast corner and 6 feet on the northwest corner. It was important that, as far as turning into the garage, as far as the egress and the ingress, that the garage, the detached garage proposal, was at a right angle to the house, just so it would flow to go in. Let me see. I looked at different ways to actually put it in a different position. We're looking at the 30-foot setback, but really it left no room to be able to park in either garage, with that being said. This is from the street. The house, and you can see the lot is, the house is right on top of a hill. And this is at the top. This is the existing garage. This is looking north. The stakes you see there is really where the garage would be for the side. And the next, and this is looking west. The lines are where the garage would go. I think you can see also there's very little grading that needs to be done. It's really flat there. This area was used for guest parking, and so it is already a disturbed area. The next photo, this is, you know, just the garage itself, and trying to use the architectural from the house to match it. It's not an RV garage. The height in Rolling Hills is 20. The R43 is 24. This is 14.6. It's the same height as the garage. Going on. Okay. Going into the, let me get my cards there. Like Stacy said, I did a mailing to 32 residents that within 500 feet of the property line. And I only had 2 people that contacted me. One gentleman called and just let me know that his name was Robert Wilford. And he said, you know, congratulations, I like what you're doing, you know, go for it. So that was a positive. The second was the Gerblex, and they have the lot behind me, and the house there. I think, you know, they called, she called, Mrs. Gerblex called and wanted to know if they could come over, and they had questions about the, what I was doing. So I had everything laid out, showed them the 40-foot setback and that. Their main concern was height, and their main concern was that it was gonna block their view. And so what I did, we met the first time, and then the second time, this is their view, and what I did to help them reassure them that it wasn't gonna block the mountains, I built a framework of the garage. And on the right there, this is an olive tree, a non-native, which would be removed. It's in the area. And actually, it would increase their view of the mountains there. Over to the left here, you can kind of see what the view is with, you know, houses. So really, you know, the mountains are really what they're looking at. Basically, I went over to try to understand what, you know, their view on this, and I took pictures. I think, you know, she just really isn't happy that, you know, something's gonna be built, period. And she also asked me if I would consider planting some native trees, and I said I would, as long as I got an approval from the HOA to do so. Basically, that's it. You know, I tried to do my due diligence before I bought it, or I wouldn't have bought it if I couldn't build the garage. And then, you know, the survey came in, and I'm going, what? How can this be? You know, and then finally figuring it out that, you know, it was, you know, the site plan was not followed exactly. And it's right on top of the hill, so it may have been because of retaining walls or whatever. They moved it a little bit, and, you know, I don't know how the inspections were back then, but basically that's it. That's really all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Anybody have any questions?
Is that property behind you, between your house and the other, is that owned by somebody, or is it?
It's owned by Gerblitz. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
just curious.
Yeah, no, it's really a narrow lot.
Yeah.
They bought it just because they didn't want anything being built in between there. And I actually said to them, I said, if you decide to sell your house and you're gonna break it up, let me know. I'd love to buy the lot also.
Of course.
So.
Thank you.
But it's in a big wash. That lot is really, would take a lot of engineering, so you don't, you know, obstruct the wash.
Any other questions?
And you've received HOA approval?
Yes,
Okay.
both times.
Anybody from the public have anything to say?
I have a comment.
Why don't you come up and?
Sorry. So, my name's Mary Lynn Workman. I live just a little bit
Oh, how about we do this?
east and south. So I'm actually have the opposite direction. And by the way, thank you to Mr. Nystrom for sending out a really nice letter. Told the cool history of the city, the house, how it got built, just how over time things have changed. I thought it was really helpful. We have a bird's eye view because I'm actually in the Scottsdale city, and we're very, very high, and so we're about level with him up that hill. So we actually see right into it. I'm actually welcoming the garage because we just look at vehicles anyways, so at least it's a prettier sight. My only real concern, we will lose sight of Elephant Butte, or Bluff there, but that's part of growth, right? My only real request is it's kind of a roundabout, I think. I've never been up there because it's a private road, but there's a couple open areas where cars have parked. I'd love to see a couple of trees go in that are native just to kind of help soften it's real barren up there as he showed in the photo, just to kind of help make it look like it's been there, like the house has. So, only comment I have. Any questions?
No.
Perfect.
Any more comments? All things considered, do I have a motion?
Right, yeah, I was just gonna say, you can make a motion. I mean, there's been, you know, if there's anything about the conditions or something that you feel might wanna be added, you know, you can discuss that at this time also.
There's something on there about planning something?
I mean, I'm not telling you what you need to do, but I think those are some of the comments that I've heard this evening, if the Nystroms are open to that.
I'm just curious, what are your feelings about that? Do you agree or disagree with what this lady just shared with us?
Oh, I love it that she does it. In fact, can't wait to remove the olive tree, but no, I will be planting vegetation.
Okay, cool.
Are you?
I'm actually, you can see my house in a couple of those photos. So I'm to the north and to the south. So I can see your front door,
Okay.
and our property
Are you
is
a
touch. Yes. Yep. Yes, I'm above the White House.
So it sounds like that Mr. Nystrom's amenable to doing some trees.
Something that too, that just,
When you make your motion, you can say subject to the conditions as well as adding some, a minimum of 4 trees or something to that effect.
have the motion approved with the conditions we're talking about.
So,
And then adding,
let me make a motion to approve the request with appropriate natural plantings to soften the site.
Yeah,
perfect. So there's your motion. Oh,
You're not talking about vegetation by the garage, you're talking about vegetation at the end of the road.
I'm talking about if you go, and I've never been up there, but it's up the road and it kind of flattens off.
I don't know if
Can you
there's
put
a
the picture
slide.
up?
It's on page,
We saw it.
I don't have my, oh, okay, let me go back to my presentation. Okay.
that picture.
Yeah.
Now, you live in the house south of this?
So I live south and east.
She lives, I'm circling it right here.
Yes, because I'm on the Scottsdale side.
You're,
So, I guess, just I mean, if he wants to plant trees, he's free to plant trees, but aren't you free to plant trees as well?
Well, he's so high and I'm so high that any tree, because I do own some, the out into the desert, but he's so high and I'm so high that no tree that's within the desert landscaping approval would ever get that high, because we're just so much higher than the road coming in.
But you're asking for trees down at the end of the road.
No,
I think
incorrect.
she's talking about right around in
At
here.
the very, so if you look at where the garage is gonna be placed, and then you go, say diagonally, it's kind of south.
How about this one? Does this help a little bit? Like you're talking about, she's talking about in here.
Yep. Yep, exactly. And because it is, yeah, construction, yeah. Oh. To make it? Yeah. Well,
Okay, so I think we're clear about what that is.
Sounds to me like the neighbors have approved with each other, so
you can come over and look if you want to see my house, that's fine.
as long as you don't fight any more than that, we're fine.
Planning and zoning, bringing people together.
So I think we have a motion. Peter, so I think, is the motion still stand?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
all those in favor?
We need a second.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
What's the motion?
The trees.
The motion was to approve the variance with appropriate natural plantings.
Can we break that up into approve the motion and then another motion to approve the conditions with an added condition? Because I want to approve that, but I don't want to approve the trees. But you're not giving me the opportunity to vote for the variance and against the trees.
Okay,
It has to be a general motion for the variance.
yes.
Then you're going to amend the conditions, second motion, amend the conditions to plant trees. To have him plant trees.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Now
Then I
call
will
for
make the
this.
original motion to approve the variance.
Okay.
Seconded.
I seconded that one, yes.
Okay. Now you're
My-
amending that.
To,
Adding a
amending it
condition.
To, ask that there be appropriate natural plantings, specifically natural trees.
To help our friends outside.
Yes.
Okay. So there's the second motion. And so who would like to second that?
I'm not-
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Now we're back to the original motion for the variance, right?
Yes. Okay. Have a motion on that.
You have it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And I seconded it.
the variance passed and then we have an updated condition that passed.
yes.
Yes?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Good job. Yes.
Thank you. Oh, yes, this is yours. There you go. Sorry about
Nice
that. Thank you
presentation.
very much.
Yes.
Okay.
Will you come build frameworks around my house too?
right, so our last case this evening is case number 2306V. It's for a new single-family home to be built in the subdivision called Los Reales in Carefree. The address will eventually be 6038 East Agave Circle. The applicant and owner, Mr. Randy Altman, and his spouse, Mrs. Marnell Ross, they're here this evening to, again, present their case, but we'll go through quickly some of the key items in the request. For the new single-family residence, they are looking for relief from the front yard setback for an encroachment of 10 feet, so pulling the house forward away from the wash in question, which we'll talk about in a moment. There's also looking for allowance of disturbance of a wash that exceeds a flow rate of 50 cubic feet per second. As you know, typically those types of drainage channels or waterways, we do not allow disturbance unless there's certain cases, and in this case, a request for a variance. And this is different from the larger wash in question related to the setback relief. And lastly, they're looking for relief from the allowance of more fill than cut underneath the building pad. Typically, as you know, it's either required to be balanced or more cut. But this, as we'll discuss in a moment, is related to general construction practices that are required in Carefree. So to give you an idea of the location, you can see it's just north of Carefree Highway. It is the last lot in the subdivision to be developed. It is a challenging lot. As we look at it a little bit more closely, you can see that more than half the lot is encumbered by a large wash. It is two washes, or two branches, of the same wash that originally had a central area that was considered developable at the time of the plat. But as you saw in your reports, and we'll discuss in a moment, that is no longer considered a developable area. You can see that the setbacks throughout time, sometimes there's been a question about the setbacks. The front yard setback is off of Agave Circle. It is a side yard setback off of Los Reales Drive. The drainage channel that exceeds the 50 cubic feet per second is to the south of the lot, and it does traverse across the front yard setback. And that is the wash in question that needs to be rerouted in order to allow the development to occur. So looking at this a little bit more closely, this is a site plan that all of the development standards are met. I shouldn't say all. These development standards have been met, other than those that are looking for relief this evening. Is a disturbance limit. Obviously, the site is constrained by disturbance and in terms of the area that is buildable, as well as it meets the building height requirements. I did want to point out, and I think the applicant will probably go into a little bit detail, there's in the site plan you can see what's called a scour wall. That has nothing to do with the relief that's under the request this evening, but it is an important element in the sense that that is what makes the area that the development is proposed in buildable. So with that said, oh yes,
On the south side of the long, if you go back,
this one?
on the front of the lot,
Speaking of the speaker.
this is getting complicated. I have to hold this down to talk.
No, is the green light on? There should be a green light that's on.
On the, I guess it's the south side on the Agave Circle, those little squares under there, are those, what are those? Are those,
That
Culverts?
is the long rectangles.
Yeah.
Those would be that's the septic fields for the property. It is not on sewer.
okay, and just to be clear, the picture that I saw, that's where one of the sheet flooding goes, is
Right. Well,
directed
yes.
now?
So that's where the realignment of the wash will be, and I'm sure the applicant will be happy to explain it to you further. But because the system is below grade, but that is a good question in terms of the fact that there is a drainage channel over the fields themselves, and assuring that yes, that there's enough depth and there's no erosion across that area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So the applicant did comply with the citizen participation requirements. One resident did reach out to the applicant after the resubmittal. I'm sure he'll be happy to explain that. We did hear from a representative from the Carefree Mountain Estates HOA. I think they had intended to come in and look at the file. I don't believe that did occur.
Stacy, you have a hand in the back here.
Okay, fantastic. So, so as the process goes, we'll have an open public hearing, and then please come up and speak or ask the questions that you have. So that's fantastic. So, with that said, the applicant is here to present his case. Randy, you're more than welcome to approach.
Well, thank you for having me this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, I should say. Well, we've been working on this for almost a year. We're well aware of the challenges on Lot 4 in Los Reales. This lot's been around for 30-plus years. It's changed hands 6 times. Previous, and stop me if it's too much information for the board. I'll try and stick to the points in question.
Please speak into the speaker.
Certainly. So, well aware of the challenges of this lot. I understood the scour wall requirements, the wash considerations, the 4-box culvert. It's not part of the planning and zoning requirement, but certainly part of the complexity of this particular lot, as well as the setback request and additional fill request for the dirt. Also have with me Mr. Nathan Wiley, who's worked with me for almost a year, has worked with me in the past in previous new builds, discuss any of the civil, grading and drainage requirements that have been met within today's request. So Nathan, if something becomes a little more complex than I'm capable of, I appreciate you helping me. Thank you. So I mean, fundamentally, you have about 2/3 of a 0.86 acre lot that's tied up in this large drainage wash. The first thing to be considered was how you're going to fit a house on about 12,000 square feet of buildable area, and then deal with the additional constraints. So the first thing to be understood is the scour wall itself, which is not part of the board request today, but should be understood, and I know there were some concerns by our future neighbors. And I think you're all familiar with scour walls that go wide and deep, 4 foot below to the bottom of the adjacent wash. They're about 8 foot wide, and they have extensive remediation considerations and are waterproofed accordingly. So essentially, for that portion of the discussion, the scour wall will be built the entire 165-foot length of the south side of that wash, connected accordingly to the 4 culvert wash that, or 4 culvert box culvert that fills the wash during heavy rain conditions, and satisfy the Maricopa County Flood Control District and CFS considerations. There's a 100-page drainage report that's been submitted as well as extensive geotechnical assessment of the land, the soil conditions, and the suitability for the house on the south side of that lot. With respect to the wash conditions, they'll be primarily met through the scour walls that'll be built to basically protect that area and not change the area, which is most important. I know there's a lawsuit 10 or 15 years ago where a previous homeowner attempted to build a fairly large 4,000 or 5,000 square foot home on that center wash area. It became immediately clear to me that we wanted to steer clear of that in its entirety and build on the south side of the remaining land area. With respect to cut and fill, we request that there is really no room for cut and fill since the wash, or the buildable area below the wash, is between 12 and 24 inches below street grade. At 21 and a half, we need to get it to 21, 22 and a half. So to accomplish that additional 12 plus inches of grade consideration, we need about 532 yards of fill dirt that would be compacted accordingly. As far as the 10-foot relief on the front setback, if you look at the lot line, you can see there by the scour wall, you have very, very limited conditions to accommodate a 3,200 square foot house. It's right to the property line on all 4 sides. So as a result, in working with the architect, working with Graham Engineering, working with the civil or the structural engineering firm, it became clear that we had to look for a little relief, the 10-foot relief on the front setback from 40 to 30 feet from the street. It is a circle. It feeds into the community, and it'll be a very good-looking adobe, natural-looking home for the community with all Sonoran Desert landscaping. We have no intentions to do anything to change the natural look and feel of the community. Let me pause and answer any questions additionally with Graham Engineering here to support me.
Yeah, going back to what I asked Stacy, it appears from the diagrams that we have at least, that there is at least the sheet flow that is on the front of the lot.
Yes.
And, now I understand that you're gonna have your septic field. How are you going to redivert that sheet flow?
Nathan, a lot of time into that. If you might join me, please.
Hi, I'm Nathan Wiley. I work with Graham Engineering. So that sheet flow in the front, and I was told by the town engineer, Mark Millstone, that I think this is like the third or fourth design on this lot, you know, from the past. And we're the only engineers that called out a flow in the front yard. And what's going on is the culvert's backing up, the large box culverts, it's backing up, and that's kind of the overflow around the upstream house and over the road and through the front yard of this lot. But essentially, we're going to carry it in a swale around through the front yard, and then as it passes the house, it's going to flare out, so it spreads out again. But then it enters the lot to the west, and then pretty much immediately goes into the big wash.
Okay, so you're going to, my words, I'm not an engineer, you're gonna put a depression in to capture the sheet flow coming off of Agave?
Correct.
Los Reales or Agave?
Agave. It's kind of at the corner there, but it's almost all coming off Agave.
Okay, and that flow is from the box culverts further up?
Yes. It so the house there on the southeast side of Los Reales.
Right.
It actually comes to the south of that house and then across the street.
Oh. And I'm, again, not an engineer or a contractor or anything, but having sheet flow over the top of a septic field doesn't present any complications?
You know, I'm not a septic engineer. I'm a grading and drainage, but
Okay.
I think they could design it accordingly. But I couldn't say for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, just add on to that remark, I do have septic approval from Maricopa County. All the existing planning and zoning requirements were submitted along with the septic requirements. Again, you have restriction on that front area to begin with as far as compaction requirements for a 3-bedroom, 3.5-bath house as far as the septic fields required. And they're aware of the swell conditions. That's actually been submitted already to Carefree ahead of time.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Just on the conditions for approval, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah?
when we're talking about the 100-year, the first under the first bullet point there, that's the north wash, right, that we're talking about, the disturbance of the wash?
What, are you talking about a bullet point in
I'm on
in
the
my
conditions
report?
for approval.
Okay, that would be.
Number 1, first bullet point. Allow disturbance of a wash that has a 100-year flow. With that, we're talking about the north wash.
No, you're talking about the south wash, the one that is related
Oh,
to the
that's
sheet
the
flow from Agave
That's
Circle.
the south, okay.
Yes.
Should we just specify that?
Yes, so, so when you make your motion, so as Peter's, mentioning, I think he's trying to make it more clear so that when we talk about those, bulleted conditions, we'll just be sure that we identify the wash. I think it's wash 2, is that correct?
I believe so, W2.
Okay, W2, so Peter, we can either just state it as the southern wash adjacent to Agave Circle, or we can state it as wash W2.
Okay, wash W2.
Mhm.
So the easement will be conferred before a building permit is issued, right? For that island? Okay. This
Yes.
is a complicated piece of property. You really must like that neighborhood. And, the other thing that's not mentioned in the conditions is the construction of the scouring wall on the north side of the buildable area, right?
Well, I guess I would say, and I know we talked about this, but this permit requires them to build it based on the plans that they submitted to us, and that includes the scour wall, so I think we're okay.
Okay, good enough.
Okay. And I think one thing we did talk about, Peter, if we can also be sure that it's the quantity of fill, versus cut under the building pad specifically.
Okay, yeah, that's to raise yourself a foot. Yes. Any other things you'd like to do to the property? My God.
Plus squeeze in the ability to squeeze in the septic system was enormously challenging. Fortunate that we're able to do so.
I walked that today,
A lot, okay.
and, I was going to address this to the engineer at the same time. It's kind of a strange setup, because the wash just divides itself there, and then it comes back into a main wash again for the rest of the neighborhood, for whatever reason. I don't know, just because the landscape allowed it to be that way?
Yeah, it's just the natural erosion, you know.
Because but the culverts are and everything else, that's the wide portion. This other portion of the side splits off and then comes back into the other end of it anyhow. It's still back to one wash.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. Okay, I have, any other questions, Ms. Shannon? Okay, I have one
Request to speak,
One
sure,
speaker
we can
request.
open up the hearing to the public. Mhm.
Huh?
Open up the hearing to the public, so
open up the
anybody
public.
can
I have a-
speak. Mhm.
Have a request here from, Joan?
Okay.
Donner? Am I pronouncing that correct? Am I not reading? Dumber? All right.
Oh, no.
Why
You can come up. You can come up to the podium.
don't you Get up and speak, please,
What do you want there?
so we can hear you.
Okay, so we've established who I am. My husband Scott and I live in lot 3, 6034 East Agave Circle. So that's the property right beside and immediately downstream from this proposed project. And Mr. Altman, actually, when you were looking at the lot, you came and talked to me, and I said it was a bad idea at that point. We've lived in our house for over 20 years, and that's long enough to appreciate the power and ferocity of that wash when it runs. You're talking about North Wash and South Wash. When it runs, it's all underwater, and it roars. And, you only need to look at the Grand Canyon to see what water's capable of doing. So, we're against
Can you
this
clarify what house
project.
you-
Which, I think is this
To the
correct?
west, right?
Yeah,
Right, okay,
That one
Yeah.
right there.
all right.
we can't even get flood insurance because of the location of the house relative to the wash. And we've chosen to live there for over 2 decades because we appreciate the natural beauty. I think a scour wall would probably take away from the natural beauty, but I'm more concerned about the potential damage to the downstream lots, not just to our house, although I think that's going to be front and center, but the houses across the wash and all the houses downstream, including Entrada, who during that lawsuit before, those residents were all against messing with the wash. I don't know if they've even been consulted this time, but I'm pretty sure I know where they'd stand. What else? And, it's not like we're particularly afraid of construction or change. Anybody that knows me would tell you I'm an early adapter. We had the first Tesla in Arizona back in 2009. So we're not afraid of change. It's just this particular change that I'm opposed to. Did I hit all the high points? Oh, yeah.
Please, say the speaking so we can.
Sorry, my name's Scott Dahmer, Joan's husband. As she said, we live right next door there. And just like Mr. Cross mentioned, you mentioned that there's 3 washes. those three washes come together behind our house. You have to understand that all of that extra flow, all that sheet thing that they're talking about, they're just building up more water that's going to converge right behind our house and then on to Entrada. This is, I don't think it's a feasible idea. I mean, and I'm not an engineer, but we've been here for 23 years and we've seen 3 huge floodings, and it is dramatic. It's something that you just have to see, and you can't, I don't think you control it. And what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing is that he wants to kind of divert water from one area, and it's gonna build up from one area and into another area, and all 3 are gonna combine. And like I said before, it's right behind my house. So I have major concerns. I will, on the good side, I would like to say something positive. I think Mr. Altman's design of the house is stunning. It would be a really beautiful entranceway because we are very close to the entrance when you first come into our subdivision. So having that beautiful house, that's the first thing you're going to see. So that was important to me and the rest of the people in the community. So I applaud him for that design, but I have serious considerations about the wash, changing the wash in any shape, way, or form. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dan Neese from Carefree Mountain Estates. I'm along with some residents of the neighborhood as well that actually live on that cul-de-sac on that backside. Prior submissions had always removed that middle channel of that north wash. And so you had the main north one running plus one across the middle, and then there's a small one that runs in the front. Based on these plans and putting in the construction law, Carefree Mountain Estates does not have an issue with, so we would approve moving forward with the variance. Thanks.
I have a question.
Why'd you?
I'm Will McDonald. I live in Entrada, which is now Carefree Mountain Estates.
Close the microphone, please.
I'm trying to. There we go. I was here for the last presentation where that guy was going to fill in the second wash with rock, and his opinion to all of us was, yeah, it's going to change the water flow, so you guys are going to have to get a lot of riprap, but I own this lot and I'm going to do this. And so I approached this with trepidation, but we have gone through the Maricopa flood control. They came through all of our houses and judged what needed to be taken out of the floodplain. They wanted all the houses in this area out of the floodplain if possible. And that included one home where they did put in one of those huge walls, went down 4 or 5 feet, went up 6 feet, and it really served the purpose. My concern before coming tonight was that the plan was again to fill the wash closest to them, build the house out onto that, which is what the last guy wanted to do, and that's not what it is at all. I think this is really well thought out, and my question is, have you been consulting with the Maricopa Flood Control?
No, because there's no floodplain. The wash right there is not a floodplain, so it doesn't go through the review.
I don't understand that at all. All of our homes, which are not on the floodplain, still had to go through that process because of the wash going by. So that's something I'd be much more comfortable if the Maricopa, have they been consulted even? Have you spoken to them?
No.
Well, I think that's a step that should be taken. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may point out one,
I do.
probably obvious.
Please, stand up.
Reno,
Thank you. With Domlers, I have had I talk about insult to injury, Peter. I had the lucky experience in a previous new build in Sentinel Rock Estates on being backed up to a wash that had exceeding 100 CFS flows per event, and became introduced to the concept of a scour wall about 4 years ago, and dealt with Stacy and the team down there. in 2020 and 2021 and had no serious concept of what scour wall conditions required relative to going 4 foot below the bottom of the lowest point of the wash, reinforcing it and going from a 4-foot footing to an 8-foot footing, basically enough to hold up the Brooklyn Bridge once reinforced. So this wall, just to be clear, we're not changing the flow of the wash, the North Wash, at all. We're going to comply 100% with the current natural elevation of the land itself. It's evolved over the last 50 years. So that south side of the North Wash, scour wall will just follow the exact contours, be built, stuccoed, and made naturally looking to protect the earth, just like anyone would have a wall in the back of their home. It'll be protected, it'll be deep, it'll be strong, and it'll be waterproofed. So there's no change to the natural flow at all. That was the big bullet to be swallowed here relative to building this. And I did speak to the Domlers, so I want to make it clear to the group that I came to them in earnest several months ago to say, even your home that has a pool and a back wall that's 4 or 5 feet from the wash and it goes down 2 or 3 feet as a more of a decorative type wall, this is a lot more extensive. And so just to put your mind at ease, there's not going to be new water being introduced. It's going to be the exact same flow, but protected with a wall that follows the exact contour of the south side of that large wash. Thank you.
That's kind of the feeling I got when I walked it this morning too, yeah.
Nathan Wiley with Graham Engineering again. So a scour wall, a flood wall holds back water, and a scour wall doesn't encroach into the water. It just protects what's there from being undercut by erosion. So if the wash eroded laterally, it would hit the barrier of the scour wall and stop and go back. So basically what it does, it protects what's on the other side of the scour wall from erosion. So technically we're not encroaching into the 100-year surface or 100-year water surface elevation, so there's no hydraulic impact. And I think that's what Randy's trying to say. And I don't know if that helps, but it's more technical terms, so thanks.
That's what I gathered too. Any other comments, questions? Oh, can we please wait to speak until we can hear you?
I'm not debating, two other water sources there, and he's talking about, water that sheets and overflows. He's diverting that into this wash, and it's going to get more water in that diverted place where he's building. And again, maybe I don't understand, because he said he's also adding fill to this area. So that's going to also change the elevation of this lot. And it's also going to affect the drainage of this lot. All that water is going to go in, and it's going to end up in my backyard.
And what house are you again?
Oh,
You
sorry,
see
I
those
just,
3 arrows?
No,
Right
yeah, I
there.
just moved it, I apologize. It's this house right here,
Yep.
to the
All the water's flowing. Those 3 arrows where you see the water flow ends up, it actually converges in our backyard.
So you currently have issues with water in the backyard?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That
Yeah, see those the three blue arrows that are flowing? They all converge into my backyard. That's what I'm concerned about. Thank you.
So it goes behind the wall in your backyard, it goes into your yard?
We don't really have a wall.
But it doesn't go inside the wall, it goes, but it's routed behind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I walked it this morning. The wash is back there and it picks up all 3 of them. It just widens right here because if you go to the lot immediately to the east, it's just one. And then it comes through the culvert blocks and then it splits up into 3 different places. And wants to wander to the little one, and the main one's to the north, and you got the little one to the south. But
Randy or Nathan, maybe you can explain about the existing condition of the southern drainage channel as it exists on the property today, and what you're proposing in terms of its alignment and where it enters and exits the site.
Nathan Wiley with Graham again. So basically, that's more or less the flow line of it in existing conditions. it's a little bit more spread out, I think, but what we're going to do is catch it in the front yard with the swale, and by the time it hits the house corner, it's going to spread out to basically flat surface. So it spreads it out to the historical condition before it leaves the property line.
It follows the same water lines?
Yes.
Okay.
The rule is the same direction, location, and fashion as pre-existing, so.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
I just wanted to make a comment that the property immediately upstream, which is the Bednor's old house. Jerry Bednor's spent a lot of time trying to fight the water, and at one point it came within how many feet of his house? 3 feet? Yeah, he had to put sandbags out. I mean, this is not a trivial flow, and I don't think it's a trivial concern.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, Stacy, has the town engineer weighed in on all of that?
He has. Mark, do you think you could come and let them know what you've determined?
Can you give us a little guidance here?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commission members. So we've reviewed all the hydraulics, and they did a very extremely thorough job. There's 3 issues that actually haven't come up yet, and I'd like to address those. First of all, the one that was just brought up as far as the 3 blue arrows, that's what's happening now. Nothing's changing. They are not creating water. They are just rerouting a smaller wash on the south side of the property. But those 3 arrows converge, as they always have, prior to hitting the downstream location. Secondarily, and I brought, I don't think you have this on your.
I do have it here.
Okay.
The board has the summary, not all the data.
There's 2 important issues that weren't brought up. So the generally accepted standard for doing a riverine analysis, which is what this is a 100-year flow. Okay, that's what everybody accepts nationwide. Now, if we get anything more than the 100-year flow, 200, 500, 1,000-year, we're all in trouble. So we can't design for anything more than the 100-year flow. But the analysis, and please come into the office to look at this, the riverine analysis takes cross sections, if you will, down the stream channel. And their analysis shows that at no point does a 100-year flood exceed the banks. So it stays within the banks. So it's not going to cause any issues. And the final issue that I had is because they are putting a wall up, it's going to impede the flow somewhat. There's no question. The wall is in the floodway. Their analysis shows that at the worst case, the worst cross-section, the water surface elevation is only rising by 7/100ths of a foot, which is about 0.84 inches. So not even an inch. And with all the acceptable engineering standards, that's negligible. And in some instances, the water surface is actually going lower than what it would be under the existing condition. So, you know, I've thoroughly researched what they've given us. I'm very comfortable with what's going on, and there is not going to be an issue for the 100-year flood flow condition.
Thank you.
Sure.
So what I think you just told us.
Okay.
Is that there is water does flow down that ditch.
Absolutely.
What we're talking about here will not aggravate either the speed or the level or the quantity of water that's going to be flowing. They're not doing anything to enhance the flow by volume or speed or anything else off of their lot
Well, and
compared to what it is today.
thank you, Commissioner. So I can't say they won't change anything, because when you're building a wall within the floodway, things are gonna change. The velocity would probably increase minusculely. Again, it's immeasurable, the amount of increase in the water surface elevation. But I can't go and say that there won't be any changes.
Okay, but de minimis.
Exactly. And the key point too is that, so they're not touching the northern wash, which we're calling wash one. And let me backtrack a little for further information. Many, many years ago, the northern wash was a segment wash. Over time, and due to erosion, that's all combined. So now it's just one large wash, which they're calling wash one. The secondary wash, and to give you numbers, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Nathan, the upper wash has a flow rate of 954 CFS. It is a large wash, absolutely, no question about that. The lower one, which they are slightly rechanneling, has a flow rate of, I believe, 104 CFS. So it's 1/9 as big as the larger one. And I want to just go back that the actual change or rerouting of that lower wash is, again, minuscule. They are changing it ever so slightly to go a little bit on the further on the south side so that they have a buildable area. So I just wanted to make sure that's understood too. Thank you for that, Mr. Burns.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Negative?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I actually do have a couple of announcements this evening. I'll try to make them brief because we do have our Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to follow. I just wanted to remind you all that the next meeting in September will be on the 12th, not the 11th. I don't believe I heard from Commissioner Cross, Farrow, Dalman, and Robertson. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong column. Tom and Ralph, and then Karen, if you're able to make the 12th.
Yeah.
You can do that.
You could only respond if you can't make it.
Did I say that? All right.
So I didn't respond.
Okay. I'm gonna remember next time to say, please respond. Okay, so all three of you are available, and I believe that Peter and Susie Dymoke won't be available. Okay. And I want to thank you for your patience tonight. You know, we've just initiated a new software system called Agenda Quick. That's why the reports look a little bit different. That's why they took a little bit longer to get completed. But it's very exciting for us, and it's going to save time, paper, in the long run, not only for the planning clerk, but also the town clerk. With that said, this or maybe September could be your last paper packets. So the town will be providing you with iPads in order to, and that's where you will look at your being an iPad, and we'll have training on that iPad as well. I think you're going to be very happy with it. It's actually a system that works similar to paper, where you'll actually have pens. I forget what they call them. Thank you. See, I need to be trained as well. This is an adjustment for me too. I'm a paper person. That you'll be able to annotate just as you would if you were holding your paper. So I think that's all really exciting. And so I don't know if we'll have it for the September meeting, but it will be for the October meeting. So I wanted to make sure that those two things were relayed to you. I think so too.
I didn't want paper in the beginning, remember that?
Yeah, I know. There's some of you that I don't think actually prefer the paper. So in any case, so those are the announcements that I had for this evening.
Thank you.
Chairman, you're welcome. Thank you. And thank you for your, I'm sorry, look at me, and I've got one more thing to say. And so we've also kind of changed the dynamic of the presentations, and I know it was a little, I like to use the word janky. And maybe provide me some feedback how you think it went, hearing more from the applicant, hearing a little bit less from me. if we think that was sort of a positive approach to your understanding of the applications and the requests and things to that effect. So that's all I have to
No more
say.
announcements?
No more announcements.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? Second? All those in favor? We're
Okay.
done.
So why don't we take a 5-minute break between this meeting, so the Board of Adjustment meeting is over before we start the